Hello everyone, after a long break, we are back into our channel. Today I'll show you one of my beautiful games that I played this year in the London system. I hope you will enjoy it, so without further ado, let's dive in straight into it. D4 by me, knight f6 by my opponent, bishop f4, d5, and this is pretty much an ordinary London system. And after e3, e6, knight bd2, this is aiming for a usual setup, c5, c3, white, so I was aiming for knight f3, bishop d3. This is a typical London structure where the bishops are outside of the pawn chains and the pawns support one very strong post in the center. My opponent played knight c6, knight f3 as planned, c takes d4, e takes d4. You could take with a c pawn, as well, but it's a bit more passive and it exposes this diagonal here so that the queen and the bishop could potentially have some impact on this king. So that's why I rather prefer taking with the e pawn and having more influence over the center and having this diagonal closed. Bishop d6, pressuring my bishop. I retreated bishop g3. If you think of taking the bishop, it's not really good because you just allow the queen to develop and you basically lose the piece that you spent time developing, and black basically wasted no time because he exchanged one piece that was developed, but in the meantime he developed another piece. So I go bishop g3, and the plan is that, if he takes, I take with the h pawn. I have an open h file that is very dangerous for his king if he ever castles kingside. So he played a6, and this is an unusual move. Usually in these positions, black first maybe goes for castling, but his usual plan is b6 and bishop b7 or bishop a6. This is what he's usually aiming for in these kind of structures, but a6 suggests that he may play b5 later on and expand on the queen side. So I know that if he expands on the queen side, I really have to put a lot of pressure on the king side, so I played just bishop d3 as planned before, putting some pressure on the king side, and he castles, and I played knight e5. It's a typical London system plan, so that when you get this position that you have your all minor pieces developed, you just put the knight on e5 because it's an active post and it's well protected, and black would have to give up the bishop in order to remove that knight. So that's a very good idea. So he plays queen to c7, puts pressure on this knight. Now 3 attackers, only 2 defenders, so the knight requires support. And there are 3 moves possible. You could, for example, of course you could take this, but we do not consider it. You could play knight f3 and get the other knight into the action. You could play queen e2 and protect the knight and enable castling queenside, but this is very difficult to achieve in this position, so there's no point trying that. Best move, in my opinion, is the move that I played, and this is f4. So now when he takes, I create this very long pawn chain, which is very strong. He plays b5 as he suggested before. He's going to put some pressure on this queen side and cause positional weaknesses. And if he plays positionally, I'm going to play dynamically and try to basically go after his king as he just creates weaknesses on the queen side. So I play queen e2. This move supports the knight, supports this bishop in some way, and probably allows some rook movement here. I just thought it was a good move, but in view of the engine evaluation, probably just proceeding with castling was slightly better. But queen e2 nevertheless. b4. Now this puts pressure on the c3 pawn, and you could think that playing a move like rook to c1 is a good idea. That's the first instinct, because if black takes, now you can take with a rook, and you put a lot of pressure here, the knight is pinned. However, this move would be a blunder in this position due to a very nice tactic, and knight takes d4. And the knight cannot be taken because the queen takes rook. So after the knight takes d4, white would have to move the queen, and this is basically lost. After like queen e3, I think black can even play like bishop c5, but not sure of that. In the worst case, black will just retreat here and have some sort of advantage. But that's why rook to c1 is not good. And I proceeded with castling because I saw this tactic. He took, I took. There was really nothing better than just taking back. And knight e7, exposing this attack from the queen. The pawn is weakened. So black achieved his aim. I have the isolated a pawn and backward c pawn, and these pawns are big targets for black, and he can easily attack them and exploit these weaknesses in the endgame. So I really have to put a lot of pressure on his kingside so that he cannot put more forces onto the attack. So I played rook c1, protecting the pawn on c3, and here my opponent played queen b6. It was not really easy for me to understand this move. I was expecting queen a5, to be honest. It is reasonable to move the queen because now if I go c4 in the next move, I get rid of the weakness, and I might have some X-ray attack towards the queen. So after that, he played queen b6, but I expected queen a5 just to attack another weakness and have this queen in a very active position. That's probably much better than what he actually played. But queen b6 also has a point to it, but I didn't see it during the game. Well, he lined up the queen with my king, so now this pawn is pinned so that this knight is not as well protected as it was before. But I really did not pay any attention to that because currently there is no threats. There are no threats, and I played bishop h4, putting some pressure on these knights here. If he does not move this knight, well, I basically take it, and then he's forced to recapture with the g-pawn, weakening his king. So he played knight e7, pretty logically. Now there's no such threat. And I played rook f3, which probably was a mistake. The engine suggests the move knight to c4 as some sort of brilliancy on that in previous moves, but it is not something that you are going to see during the game. And so I just went rook f3, continuing with my plan that if black wants to attack my weaknesses on the queen side, I should aim all my forces to the king side. So the plan is basically to move this rook to h3 and then attack h7. Pretty straightforward. Now, best move according to the engine for black is knight f5, hitting the bishop and providing some security for the king. But he had another idea. He played knight g6, and this is actually pretty clever because he attacks my bishop and he attacks my knight here, and it is difficult to see, but this knight is actually very in a big danger because there are 3 attackers and only 2 defenders. Remember that this pawn is no longer counted as a defender because it's pinned. So it seems like a very strong move, and if black ever gets me to give up my bishop or knight for this knight, and actually he recaptures with the h-pawn or f-pawn, has a very safe king and pieces of exchange, so my attack is not that dangerous, and I have many weaknesses on the queen side, so ultimately black would have the upper hand. But I just wanted to continue with the attack because I spotted some nice tactic. So I played bishop to g5, leaving this knight unprotected in some way. I had to consider moves like f6, but these are not very good because you just take here, threatening the rook, and after the pawn takes, you can take the pawn on e6 with check, and that's a disaster, really. There is nothing black can do. If he goes like king h8, that's checkmate, and if he goes like rook f7, then, well, it's pretty much a disaster as well. You could like take, for instance, on g6 and the rook is dead. So yeah, that's just completely over. So f6 was not possible. H6 also was not a really great move, because here just bishop takes knight, or knight takes knight, also probably winning. And there are a lot of variations here, but I'm just going to show what happens if he recaptures here. Well, we could even leave this bishop unprotected, and we could go for like knight takes g6, threatening queen e6, threatening f8, and this is pretty much winning for white. So he couldn't do any of that, and that's why he played, he just went after my piece, but he did so in a inaccurate order. What black should have done is probably captured with this knight first, and after that perhaps capture with a bishop. And I mean, white is still a lot better, but it's not losing immediately. What he did was he took with this knight, which is highly inaccurate, because after I took here, he took with a knight. And this is a huge blunder. He could have taken the bishop and he would be, well, he still would be worse, but this wouldn't be a disaster. But why is it a disaster? Well, it seems that black is doing very well. He's up a pawn, he's threatening to take one of my pieces again. So what is the blow that allows white to win this in this position? You can pause the video and try to find this yourselves. But I guess pretty obvious is that bishop takes h7 is the best try. So there's a check, so king has to take, and rook to h3, check. Now there are only two moves. King g6 obviously is a losing move, because after queen here, well, basically you see that this king has no way of retreating and basically gets mated very soon. I guess it's pretty much over right now even. Yeah, this will be it. I guess that's the way it goes. So after queen h5, this is not possible. So rook h3, and the king goes back to g8. And I think black, when he played knight takes e5, he saw this variation, and he thought that I would play queen h5, which is a blunder. And well, it seems that it's a very strong move, because you just go straight for checkmate. But black has this f6 move, which actually saves the day. There is no way to get for this king. Queen h7, let's say king here. You can't really even take here and try to sacrifice material, because black actually can take this with a king, and there's basically no threats here. Okay, I can win the pawn, but there's nothing more I can do. And actually black, after playing king e8, is actually quite safe and up a piece. So he saw this variation probably and thought that I would go for it and lose. But after king g8 there's a better move, which uses a similar idea to queen h5, but is way better because it works. So you can again pause the video and try to find it. The move is bishop to f6. Now this aims to stop f6. It's pretty straightforward. So if black does nothing, black just plays a5, we just play queen h5, threatening mate, and now black does not have the saving move f6. He loses the game immediately. So black has to do something to avoid that, and well, there is very little he can do. He cannot really play g6 to stop queen h5 because of rook h8 checkmate. And well, if you take the bishop, then again a beautiful tactic arises after queen h5, again threatening mate, and it's not possible to save with f6 because the pawn blocks the way. So that's a very nice motif. Black does not really have a lot to play for here. Probably best move is like queen b2 or something like that, but it does not save anyway. Black played rook d8 with the idea that after I go queen h5, which actually happened in the game, you can go knight g6, so that I cannot play queen h8 checkmate, and if I play queen h7 check, He goes king f8, and now he thought I cannot play queen h8, but that's exactly what I did. Queen h8 check. Now there is no place for the king, everything is blocked, so the knight has to capture the queen, and now rook takes on h8 with a beautiful checkmate at the end. So you see how this London system, being a seemingly passive opening where nothing really happens, can explode and can produce such a beautiful attack out of nothing. Basically, when your opponent focuses too much on the queen side and leaves you an option to attack on the king side, I think you should pretty much do so, as I did in this game. Of course, black made some significant mistakes, but the position was very complicated and it wasn't easy for him to evaluate the position correctly as fast as he could. I guess that's all. I hope you enjoyed this game. If you want, share some comments with me down in the comment section below. And thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.